Okay, welcome to this video here. We're going to go over how to use VMware Workstation 15, and actually it's going to be 15.5.6. As these versions progress, you'll see they get a little bit different, but for the most part, the same thing is very similar. We already have our Windows 10 ISOs. We're going to choose our Windows 10 2004 English version. It's a little bit bigger. It has a little bit more bells and whistles in it. But if you got the education version, this process is the same. So we'll go ahead and create our virtual machine. We're going to go through typical. Actually, we'll choose custom. We're going to make it, we're going to show the difference between player and workstation. So right off the bat, it tells us what compatible products this is going to install with or be transitional to other versions. So any Windows machine or Linux machine that uses Workstation 15, anything above 15.0.1.5.6, whatever versions they come out with, as long as it's in the 15 family, and above. If you try and take this to workstation 13, 11, 14, it will not work. You'll have to go through a conversion process. It's a little bit different. If we look at this, it is also compatible with Fusion 11 point and higher. Again, anything lower than 11, this virtual machine we're creating in 15.5.6 will not work. It also tells me the limitations is 16, 64 gigs of memory, 16 processors, 10 network adapters. Notice on Workstation or Pro uh, player, you only had one network adapter. You didn't get to choose. So there's a lot more options there. Again, you can also choose up to 8 terabytes and 3 gig shared graphics memory. So we'll move forward into next. Again, we'll choose our ISO, which we're going to choose the Windows 10 ISO. It tells us that operating system is detected. It's going to ask for a product key. If you have the product key, you're going to enter that time, but we have Windows 10 Pro. We're going to put in our username and password. If you choose enter your password and you forget it, you will have to figure out how to reset that password without admin credentials. So easier just to leave it unprotected for right now. It's done like this intentionally so that we can get a handle on creating a forensics VM just quick and easy. And again, if you notice, the user's location will be users, your username, documents, virtual machines, and the virtual machine name that we've selected, which we've set it as Forensics VM. Also, on the left-hand side of our screen here, you'll see a library and a few more options up at the top for snapshots, uh, and that's a way to save our progress. So if we click next, oh, that's right, I've already done this, so we'll do VM2. We'll set everything as standard here, UEFI. We can choose the number of processors. We're going to choose 2 processors with 2 cores to give us 4 total. Again, your laptop desktop needs to be a higher number than what you virtualize. So if I set it to 16 processors, it's going to try and push as many processors that I have. So I have an i7 7th generation, which has 16 cores. If I try and utilize all of them, I'll have the virtual machine and my core OS at the same level. You want to virtualize less than what you have currently. You want to go less than what you have currently. If you don't, your machine's going to run slow, it'll run poorly, it may not load the virtual machine at all, and you may be forced, because it hangs, it sticks, it may be forced into a reboot, and you'll have to select these configurations all over again. So understand what you have. I have a Dell Inspiron 5850. I know what it has because I've seen the statistics and I've upgraded the RAM on it personally, so I know how much RAM I have. Again, it'll tell me that the maximum RAM here is 32 gigs. We saw that earlier. The maximum recommended memory is 27.7. I don't think that's so great. I think we should maybe bump it up to 4 gigs. It'll tell us the guest operated minimum because we looked at our minimum system requirements earlier at 1 gig. I'm going to bump this to 4. I have 32 gigs. You need to think about what you have, because if you have 4 gigs of RAM and you try and virtualize 4 gigs of RAM, they're both going to compete for that RAM, and you're going to have a very slow machine and it's not going to work very well. So go lower, but not lower than the recommended minimum. Network address translation, for right now we don't need any fancy network, so we're just going to leave it easy network address translation. Everything else will stay standard. And we'll get to choose the disk size, which we'll leave at 60, and we'll be able to split it into multiple files if we need to as well. You get to also choose the location of the virtual disk file. That's something you didn't get to do in Player. And one day we'll make a video regarding how to make a portable virtual machine. For right now, we're just going to leave it as is. So all in all, we can review our settings. We have a forensics machine that's going to be located here. It's using Workstation 15. It's Windows 10 x64, 60 gigabyte drive, 4 gigs of drive space, NAT adapter, 4 CPU cores, and there's some things that we don't need, like a printer. So we're going to go back to customize hardware, and we're going to take that printer right out. Just go in, click remove. And we'll finish. At which point in time it will set up the disk, create the virtual machine, and after which we will then see the system load the operating system for the first time, which will go through a power on self test. Just like you turn your physical machine on, the virtual machine goes through the same steps. And if you can actually go into the BIOS, the virtualized BIOS as well. So we'll let it sit here and create this disk, create the virtual machine, and we'll see it move into the first steps of the Windows 10 installation process. Okay, and once we're done creating that virtual disk, we'll see it pop up here shortly. So here's our virtual machine for the first time. And if we made any mistakes, we can edit our virtual machine once it's powered off. You can't make any changes to it while it's running. So VMware will launch, will run and open up or start our virtual machine. And our BIOS screen happens rather quickly because it is virtualized, and we'll move into the Windows installation part here. After which you'll see down at the very bottom, easy install is installing Windows 10 x64. And if you want to see more information about that, you can click help. After which, at the end of the installation, you'll actually see a little tooltip down at the bottom asking you, once you've uninstalled, it will remove the disk for you. It's a quick, easy setup. So setup is started. You'll run through the typical things like choosing a time zone, doing any additional Windows setup features that needs to be done. For the most part, you'll be presented with a desktop after you select a few things. Depending on the speed and the RAM and the drive speed, that's your hard drive, how fast your hard drive is, this process could take anywhere from a few minutes to a few hours. So it really depends on that. So we can see that the Windows setup is started, and it will go through all these settings, and it gives you the option for installing updates. That's why we choose the most recent one. If we choose an older one, it'll go through a long period of time. It'll take this installation, make it take a lot longer. So we'll leave this at that, and we'll visit this at a later date.